Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ben here. I'm back again today doing another video, and the subject of today's video is going to be on Carmelo Anthony. He is a free agent currently. He has been for what is getting close to a calendar year, which is hard to believe. Most people out there would say that Carmelo Anthony still has something left in the tank. Last year, when he played, I think around 9 games for Houston, he averaged something like 11 points per game on relatively poor efficiency. And the year before that, when he played a full season with the Thunder, he averaged 16 points a game, shooting like 40% from the field and like 33% from 3-point range. So mediocre numbers, but hey, Carmelo Anthony said on ESPN about 2 weeks ago, I'm willing to take a different role. I'm willing to come off the bench. I'm willing to be the sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth man on a team. And I think that he still has the talent to make an NBA roster and be a really good, like, sixth or seventh man on a good team. Um, so Carmelo once pointed out how there's like 450 to 500 players in the league, or there's 450 roster spots in the league. And he said, I'm good enough to make one of those spots. Well, yes, he is, but then when you narrow it down to him really only being able to play small forward or power forward in the NBA, that takes away 60% of the available positions. So we're down to like, let's say, from 450 down to something like 200 available spots for him. So that leaves him with less options than he would have thought, only 200 spots. And then when you account for teams that already have players in those positions and stuff, you'd say there's really only about 50 potential spots that he could fit into where he would be better than the player that's currently on the roster. And then you have to account for factors like teams that already have a lot of scoring and they don't really need what Carmelo brings, which is basically like volume scoring and nothing else. And then you have to account for teams like a lot of rebuilding teams I would have put on here, but a lot of rebuilding teams don't want a player like Carmelo who's going to take 17 shots a night away from young guys. Like, I'm going to quickly go through teams that you think like, oh, they could use him. But then when you think about it, it's like, well, they don't want a guy like him taking away shots from young guys who need to develop. The Hawks, the Bulls, the Cavaliers, um, the Knicks, Orlando, um, Dallas, Memphis, Minnesota, New Orleans, Phoenix, Sacramento. All those are teams where it's like, well, he could potentially fit on there, but because they're young and trying to promote these young players, they don't really want a guy like Carmelo who's at the back of an end of his career taking up all those shots. Well, anyways, let's get into the 5 teams that I think that Carmelo could fit on. Number one, the Toronto Raptors. So they lost Kawhi. They got Rondae Hollis Jefferson, who's played a little bit of small forward, which they're asking him to spot up as. And they have at power forward and center, they have a three-headed monster of Pascal Siakam, Serge Ibaka, and Marc Gasol. But really, they don't have much in the way of a backup forward that I feel like would do too well. They have OG Anunoby, who I don't really trust as a great NBA player or even good. He's kind of like a mediocre backup to average backup. I feel like he barely played last year in the playoffs at all. Um, and besides that, they have Norman Powell, who really is more of a shooting guard, but they might play a little bit at small forward. But I feel like they could really use one more forward on this roster. I think Carmelo Anthony would be the guy. He could replace a decent amount of Kawhi's scoring. Rondae Hollis Jefferson wasn't enough with replacing Kawhi's scoring. He's maybe good for 10 points a game, but you could bring in Carmelo. He could average 12 points a game, maybe 13, and he would be a good replacement, I think, for Kawhi's on offense. And he hasn't played much small forward, but I think he could, and he would be okay if he just committed to losing 15 pounds. Um, Defensively, he's not going to be that good, but Toronto's pretty good defensively already, and offensively is what they would need him more for, and that's what he could provide this team with is some good offense, or at least a guy who can get his own shot off, unlike Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka. Um, you know, those guys aren't really going to be able to do that. Kyle Lowry can, but he's a diminutive guy. He's very short. Uh, and Pascal can a little bit, but his ball handling isn't quite there yet. that I would just completely feel comfortable giving him the ball on the wing and saying, okay, get your shot off. Whereas Carmelo could be really useful from that perspective at the end of games. Okay, on to the second team I have here is the Philadelphia 76ers. Why do I have Philly on here? Well, they've got a great starting lineup. They've got 5 great guys on their team. But besides that, no offense, but they don't got much. They've got Amir Johnson. They've got James Ennis. They've got Kyle O'Quinn. Uh, that's really the majority. Mike Scott. So Amir Johnson, Mike Scott, Kyle O'Quinn. They need a wing scorer, and Carmelo Anthony can be that for them. He can be a punch off the bench, and you know what? They have really no punch off their bench right now, and so I think he would fit pretty well as their backup small forward. You could slot James Ennis over to your backup shooting guard, and you'd be just fine. And Carmelo could give you 12 points a night off the bench and be basically the only bench scorer that Philadelphia would have. He wouldn't be great for spacing necessarily, but I mean, he has something of a 3-point shot, so he'd be okay. They just need some sort of bench scoring because they don't have any of that, and he could provide that for them. Next, I have the LA Clippers, who are a similar scenario to these two teams I've already been talking about. They kind of the combination for them. Number one, they've got a really good starting lineup. Uh, and they have actually a decent bench, but they need wing depth. They don't have much wing depth. They've got right now their starting lineup would probably look like, in my opinion, Pat Beverly, uh, Paul George, Kawhi, Luka Mute, and Zubac, with your bench being something like Landry Shamet, Roddy Magruder, uh, and then you'd have Montrezl Harrell and Lou Williams. And that's off the bench. You've got 3 shooting guards and a power forward center, but a guy who's basically going to play mostly center and Harrell. But you don't really have much in the forward position. Yes, you've got Mbah Mute, but he's already past his best days in my opinion, and he's kind of like not a last resort, I want to say, but just not the guy you'd immediately think of like, oh, NBA starting caliber guy. Carmelo could sort of balance him out. Luka Mute is essentially pretty good defense with little offense, and Carmelo would be like decent offense with little defense, and you could sort of stagger their minutes, play Melo 24 minutes a night, play Luka Mute 24 minutes a night, and they could balance each other well. You could take out Paul George and Kawhi and have run a lineup that's something like Pat Beverly, Lou Williams, Carmelo, Montrezl Harrell, and Zubac, or something like Pat Bev, Lou Will, Landry Shamet, Carmelo, and Montrezl Harrell. You'd have options, and they'd at least have some depth at the forward position, which right now they really don't have much of. Looking at their roster, they've got Mo Harkless. I've never really liked Mo Harkless much. He's just very average to mediocre. He's going to give you 8 points a game on mediocre shooting and average effort defense that kind of like any player could give you. But already you look at Mo Harkless and you say, okay, well, Carmelo would be better than him on offense, and Mbah Mute is better than him on defense. So where would Mo Harkless fit into this equation? Well, I don't know, but I'm just not a huge fan of Mo Harkless, so I like Carmelo for the Clippers. Next, I have the Portland Trailblazers as another team that I think he would fit well on for similar reasons to the Clippers. Yes, the Trailblazers are a good team with plenty of firepower offensively already, but what do they lack? Power forwards and even small forwards to some extent, but mostly power forwards. They traded away Myers Leonard, who played some power forward last year. They let Al-Farouq Aminu go, and they traded away Mo Harkless. And what are they left with? They're left with basically Zach Collins having to transition from playing backup center to basically starting power forward this year, at least while Nurkic is out of the lineup. They've got other guys at power forward like Skal Labissiere, who I don't really trust to give significant minutes to yet in the NBA. And they've got Anthony Tolliver, who's good for, in my opinion, 12 minutes a night, but not much more than that. His defense is too unreliable, and offensively, he can get some spot up threes, but not much else. But Carmelo could really fit in well here as like a starter. I could see Carmelo start for this team and play 25 minutes a night at power forward. He would be like basically right away the third offensive option on this team because he can create his own shot. And then you could get a little bit more creative where like you could actually have both CJ and Dame on the bench because you'd have a guy out there in Carmelo who could run the offense through him and he could create his own offense for the team and they'd be fine. Um, and yeah, you'd be fine with him out there with them on the bench. You could have a lineup out there like Hassan Whiteside, Carmelo Anthony, Rodney Hood, um, Kent Bazemore, and Anthony Simons, and that's not a bad second unit necessarily. Um, yeah, so I think that he would fit in really well with the team for some of the same reasons: lack of power forward, small forward depth, and a lack of bench scoring. And then last but not least, this is the team that really kind of deviates from this sort of style I've been presenting of teams that could use him, that need wing or power forward, small forward depth, and bench scoring. The last team I have here is the Charlotte Hornets, and I'll identify why I have them here. This team is the most uh, aimless, wandering team I've ever seen in recent NBA history as far as they've basically gone all in on a bunch of guys who would be the sixth man on any decent team. They're gonna basically look to Terry Rozier to put up about 18 points per game. He's going to shoot like 40% from the field and like 30% from three. Be a really inefficient scorer. And in my opinion, the way I look at this is they're probably going to win 28 games next year. Why not just do all of that, but instead of having Terry Rozier be the main guy, averaging 18 points on awful shooting splits, why not just have all that be transferred over to Carmelo Anthony, who will sell your team way more tickets and put up the exact same numbers, but you'll have brand recognition, you'll sell a ton more jerseys, your TV ratings will be way higher with a Hall of Famer on your roster and you'll sell out a lot of more tickets at actual games. That's my take on the Hornets. Like, why the heck not? You're not doing anything productive with your franchise right now. You're not cultivating any young talent. You're not bringing in any quality stars via free agency or trade. Why not just sign Carmelo Anthony, give him a ton of shots a night, tank even more than you were going to, and get a lot more views and attendees at your game? There you have it, guys. Those are my opinions on teams Carmelo should go to. Basically, ones that have a lack of forward depth and a lack of bench scoring, except for the Hornets. Let me know your thoughts below on where Melo should go, or your critiques or thoughts on where I said he should go. Hope you enjoyed the video again, and I will see you next time. Bye.